Today I wanted to relate my interactions with the Colombian immigration office. Started about August after I had traveled out of the country. To give you a little background, when you come to Colombia as a US immigrant, you have 180 days to spend in the country with your permit. US citizens don't require a visa upon entry. You can spend up to 180 days, about 6 months, in Colombia without a visa, okay? So when you first come, they will provide you a length of stay of about 90 days. You can stay in Colombia, then you travel back out, and then you can come back for another 90 days. I've been visiting Colombia since December, and I have visited and spent some time and returned. Ended up running out of time to spend in Colombia in August. So I knew that when I returned to the country, I had a set amount of days. So right about maybe a week or two before my length of stay was to expire, I sent an application to their website on Migracion Colombia requesting an extension because I felt that I needed a little bit more time because my next flight wasn't due at that time. I needed, I believe, a few more weeks. So I went and applied for this on Migracion Colombia. The response that I received was that my length of stay had already expired. So what happened was when I came in at the last time, they stamped on my passport, they wrote 90 days. So I thought I still had 90 days. At the airport, when you enter the country, they didn't take the time to write down in my passport how many actual days I had left. Nobody said, these are the days that you have left. They just put 90 days on my passport. So not knowing, what time I had to do this, then I did not apply in a timely manner. Granted, my children all had visas for Colombia because I had applied for them a few months before because their length of stay would have expired before mine. So I was able to provide them those visas without any difficulty. So the process of applying for the visa can be fairly straightforward. Let's just put it that way. I applied for 2 visas for the children without any trouble. I applied and they got it within a few days. The third one was more difficult because there are different offices you can put your documents to be processed through, and the office for the third one was different. So it took me a couple of weeks, several weeks to actually get this, and I actually had to hire a visa agent. So when you're applying for a visa, there's so many little intricacies, different little nuances that you have to be aware of so you don't end up getting stuck, right? I'll discuss that another time. But in my case, I didn't need to have the visa because I was traveling in and out of the country, alternatively with my husband. And the issue was that I felt that I only needed to have so many days anyway. So when I applied for the extension, they said no. They said, you have until this time to leave the country. So I reached out to the agent I had worked with in the past, and I asked her to put in an application for me to get my visa too. And she applied for a visa for me as a beneficiary. Now, I know she's a travel agent and I trust her decision and how she phrased things, so I didn't really ask a lot of questions. When you say beneficiary, what is that and what have you. So she put it in the first application, and within a couple of days Well, it took them a week. Within a week, they said they did not approve it because I cannot be a beneficiary of my children. I had applied for the visa on the basis that my children were in a school in Colombia. So they said this is not the right visa to apply for. You cannot be a beneficiary. But they did not tell us what types of visas that we could apply for. So we said, well, maybe we can apply for a tourist visa, because to start with, we had 180 days without a visa, because it was allowed for US citizens to be in the country without a visa for the first 180 days. Well, maybe we can apply for a tourist visa. So then we put an application for a tourist visa. So the response again was negative, because the 180 days that they had given me in the first place was because I was a tourist. Even though it didn't say tourist visa, it was because I was a tourist. So I can't apply for a visa as a tourist. Okay. So I couldn't apply as somebody who works in Colombia, because I don't. I work in the United States and I travel back and forth. I couldn't apply as a student because I wasn't necessarily studying in Colombia. I didn't apply for any courses or anything like that. So I was a little stuck. So I had a friend who had a studio and they do video production. And so I asked him if I could use his resources to apply for a volunteer visa, so that my activities in the country working with them could qualify as a volunteer and I could apply for a visa that way. Then the visa as a volunteer was the next possibility that we tried, but somehow that did not work out. Their response was, you went over your given length of stay for Colombia, so now you have to go back to Migracion Colombia, the office that takes care of illegal immigrants or people who need to regularize their stay in Colombia. So this I did. So I went and contacted the office of Migracion Colombia that deals with people who were over their length of stay in Colombia. So I took the letter that I received from the visa office and I took it to them. When I checked the website where they set up the appointments, they didn't have anything available for like months out of the year. So my travel agent or visa agent advised me to stop by the office and talk to them. So I went to them and I said, this is my issue, what do I do? They wouldn't even let me through the door. They said, you have to do it online. We're not accepting people here, walk-ins. We're not accepting walk-ins. You have to do it online. So I went back home. So I had a friend call them for me and kind of talk to them and more in depth about the issues. So then I set up an appointment to go see them. When I set up the appointment to go there, the day of the appointment, when I arrived at the front door, there's usually somebody at the front door that kind of handles check for your documents, if you have the right appointments and what have you. So these agents that's standing in front of the door, they have no pity. Okay, so she comes and she sees my documents and she says, you have the wrong appointment. Okay, you can't come and see this agent today because first you have to go to this other office, the administrative office. Once you see the administrative office and they tell you that you're okay, they are the ones that are going to make it legal for you to apply for this particular paper. The paper I was applying for was called a salvoconducto. Okay, that's what the visa office asked me for. They wanted a salvoconducto, or a document that shows that I'm in the country legally. Okay, so when I went to the appointment for the salvoconducto, the person at the entrance told me, you can't come for this appointment for salvoconducto today because before you do that, you have to go and see an agent in the administrative office. So I said, okay. So I go home. This is Mind you, this is the second time I go to this office and I have to go home. So I go home, I go in and apply for the administrative office. Thankfully, somehow I managed to get the appointment for the administrative office the day before I go for my salvoconducto appointment, okay? So I show up the day of my administrative office appointment to see this agent. At the door, again, this person at the door says, "Oh, I don't think you can do this. I don't think you can do this appointment today." And I said, no, because I came here a week or two ago and someone told me that I couldn't get my salvoconducto appointment until I have my administrative office appointment, and that's what I did. So I kind of persisted this time. She goes inside, she said, I'll be back. So she goes and she comes back. And she said, okay, you can talk to her. So I go inside. And my goodness. So I go inside and I talk to this agent, and then I told her, this is my appointment. I'm here over my length of stay, and I need a document that regularizes me so that I can go and apply for my visa. So she goes, but no, we can't do this today. She said, you need another appointment before your salvoconducto appointment. And right now, I don't have enough room to fit you in anything. Everything is booked right now, so I cannot do this administrative process appointment for you, because you need another appointment before you can even do the salvoconducto appointment. I said, oh my gosh. I said, this is the administrative process appointment, isn't it? That's what they told me I needed to do. She's like, no. This is not the only appointment you need. You need another appointment before you do the salvoconducto appointment. And then I had a trip booked, and I needed to do things, and my deadline for my visa application to submit those documents was coming very close. I needed to do that because it was the day after my salvoconducto appointment. I had to book everything really close to each other. So in the end, she did nothing for me. She said, no, I cannot do this today. We're not gonna help you with these papers. You have to have another appointment before your salvoconducto appointment. So she sends me home. She said, you know what you should do is you should just go to the airport when you're on the day that you leave. And it happened to be that same week. And just tell them the situation. I think that's when I kind of gave up, and I said I'm not even going to continue to try to get a visa, because this is extremely frustrating, because I think I've gone to this place like a number of 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, to ask them to process these papers, and every time I get the run around, I'm told to go home, and it's really hard to set up appointments. It's hard to reach people on the phone to talk to them, and I am not a first language speaker of Spanish. It's a language that I'm learning. I've needed to use other friends to help me sometimes call and really have complicated conversations with them. So I think I kind of get really frustrated, and I thought to myself, I'm done. I'm not going to try to work this out so hard anymore. So the goal was to go to the airport. So I called the agent and I told her, you know what, I don't think this is going to work out. I'm done. I'm not even going to try to apply for this visa anymore, because I can't get the documents at the time. And the visa office had asked for like other documents and a lot of documents to get everything set up. So on the day of my scheduled flight, I went to the airport, and they had me go to the immigration office in the airport, and they looked at all the documents, asked me why I was staying in Colombia longer than I was allowed to. I explained that at the time I was the only parent of my children, that my husband was traveling, so I could not leave them. So I had to stay in town during the time when the deadline had reached. And I didn't even know also that I was illegal, because I wasn't aware that I had run out of days. So they basically took my information and told me that they would have their lawyer look at all my papers, and then they would let me know if there's a fine to pay or anything like that. So I told them that I wasn't planning on coming back. We planned, and we only had a few months left to stay in Colombia, so we organized ourselves and packed up to go. So, so basically, the process of applying for visas in foreign countries is really, it can get really messy. It can get really complicated. And if there's a language barrier, it makes it even more frustrating. I feel that the communication lines, they're not as well established as they should be. For example, if you need to talk to an agent, it's not easy to find somebody who speaks English. Um, if you find somebody on the phone, sometimes the phone, if you lose the call, it's so hard to get back in. It's not, they don't have, it's not as available as it should be. Like if you go online and you try to chat with someone, sometimes you have to wait for hours to reach someone so they can talk to you. Even the visa agent that I was working with, I felt sometimes she didn't know, or she hadn't come across this particular case or this particular situation and didn't know what to do. They didn't have a visa that was available for someone who actually just wants to have your kids study in the country. You would have had to have a work visa, a student visa. I believe there was an investor visa, almost like a retirement type slash financial independent person visa, where you, if you make a certain amount and you have so much coming into your account monthly, then that you can apply for a visa like that. But I think it had to come in a specific form. So they changed things over time. So nobody could tell me what visa I could apply for. The visa office would not make any suggestions, and people don't respond to emails. We emailed an agent that worked at the visa office, and I explained the case to her and said, you know, this is what's going on. I need a visa, and I'm not sure which one to apply for. These are the issues that I've come across. No response. Even to this day, no response. It's extremely hard to really get in touch with the right person to get that information that is relevant. My goal had been to spend a year in Colombia, and you know, for the most part, I was able to do that. With that hitch in the end, with that complication towards the end, so I had to leave that place a little earlier. So my advice to someone who is visiting Colombia, or any other country for that matter, I don't know, I can't speak for all other places in Latin America or elsewhere, but for the place where I was in Colombia, I think that know exactly how long you can stay, and if there's any fine prints, like any fine lines. You can stay for 90 days, and then, you know, if that 90 days expired, what happens when they say 90 days, what does that mean? And I had initially planned on getting a visa, but my timeline was shorter than I thought, because there wasn't any established way to really for them to compute for me, okay, you need this much. And if I had thought about it, if I had known, I probably would have done that for myself. But it was my experience. It was my first experience dealing with a foreign country outside of the United States. So I hope that this little story here helps somebody if you are thinking about traveling. I remain very happy with my experience in Colombia. I think it was a wonderful time for us as a family. And I would still go back. I would still go to Colombia, and I would still spend time there. I think the experience, all the benefits and the great things that we did there outweigh that little hurdle. And it's really about communication. I think a lot of issues that people face in the world today could be saved or could be solved with really good communication. Okay? So give me some feedback. Is this helpful? Do you have any advice for me? Is there something that I should have known that maybe I didn't know? Have you had an experience with the Colombia office, or the immigration office? Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it helpful? So your feedback is welcome, and thank you for watching. Ciao.